Hey, we are live, Mark Gassard. How are you doing, bud?
Doing tremendous. Another magnificent Monday out there in the stratosphere, and spring is getting a little bit closer, a little bit closer, you
I
know.
know you shared with me this morning that you got pollen out there, so that's a
Hmm,
good sign that spring is around the corner. So,
absolutely.
yeah. So, hey, Mark, why don't you share with the audience the purpose of Elevate Your Profits, and we'll do a
Okay,
quick
excellent,
rollout and introduce our guest.
tremendous. Elevate your profits. Very simply, it does have to do with dollars and cents. Oh boy, hold your ears if you don't want to hear that word, but who doesn't in this economy right now? And we're going to delve into some really exciting things with our guest tonight, Tom, as you're going to share that with us. But you know, it's also, about your business, or it could be about an idea, a concept, a cause. It's not just solely geared for dollars and cents, but tonight we are going to talk about that pretty intently, so to speak. And, we welcome anybody, and we've had people that have been authored in the past come on here, and we highly recommend. Tonight we have someone else that's authored a few times over. So it's always a lot of fun. We never know who we're going to uh, who's going to step forward and come on, elevate your profits. And it's really all about, sharing ideas, concepts, and we learn from you as much as you learn from us. It's give and take, and tonight's going to be one of those magical moments. I feel it, and that's pretty much it for me.
Well, thanks. Good job, Mark. So, in closing, we're going to be right back.
Hey, we're back.
We are back. I was going to play our core. Here we go. We are ready to roll.
Absolutely. I'm ready to go to a football game when I hear that, man. Kind of get you pumped up, geared up, so.
Well, I'm really excited tonight and humbled and honored to have our
Mm,
guest on. He's a distinguished practitioner in the dentist industry. He's also part of the ASEA team. He's written 3 books. Tonight we'll be talking about one of his books. We'll allude to his other 2 books tonight as well. But tonight we'll be talking about something that I think it matters with everybody, why it matters. So we'll be talking about his book, his principles, his why, and all that. At this point, I'd like to bring in Dr. Lee Ostler. Good evening. Good afternoon, Lee. How are you?
I'm great, Tom. Hi, Mike. Hi, Mark. It's nice to be with both of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here and giving your time to share with us this evening. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I enjoy this.
Well, really, I always like to start with this a little bit about where you calling in from.
I'm from I live in the Richland, Washington, down in the southeast corner of the state.
Wow.
Okay. And a little bit about your background, if you could, a little bit about your professional background, and then we'll ask you what are you grateful for today, and your why story here in a moment. So.
My background is I'm a general dentist. I have special emphasis in things like TMJ and cosmetic rehabilitation, bite reconstruction, and so forth. But I've been doing this for 40 years, graduated in '83 from the University of Washington in Seattle. Spent a little time in public health service and then gravitated toward private practice, which is what I've been doing since. I've had great opportunities throughout my career to accelerate and kind of go down some various rabbit holes and kind of perfect some expertise. I've been a clinical instructor. We've developed a marketing company, marketing strategic ideas for physicians and dentists to be able to work together that evolved into a software company where we're writing software. I've had a laser hair removal franchise. So we've I guess you could call me a serial entrepreneur. Currently, I've engaged with ASEA as a network marketing professional, and we'll probably touch on that a little bit later with regards to why I'm doing that as well as practicing in my profession. So I think most people would relate that, by the time they get near retirement, they feel like they're performing and operating at the peak. And it's like, I wish I could just practice another 100 years and just keep getting better. But we have to have multiple things going on, don't we?
Yes. We've had conversations here before coming on and here recently, is that people are struggling today financially, and with our current economic conditions, people need to make reassessments of what they're doing and as far as protecting themselves financially. So we'll be talking about some of the 2 or 3 of the principles in this book. It's a marvelous book. It's something I've been coaching for years and encouraging people to have the side gig and to minimize risk to themselves financially by having that extra stream of income. So Mark and I have been promoting MSI, multiple streams of income, Robert Kiyosaki principles for years, and I've been involved in that personally myself. So tonight, hopefully what you'll do is be able to bring people to start asking those. I believe questions are the most important thing. Start questioning what you're doing and why you do what you do, and what are the solutions to potential risks that we have financially. So with that all said, we're going to move right into your book. I like to always start the meetings out with this. What are you grateful for today?
Yeah, I'm grateful for opportunity. And I'm grateful for the ability to choose, for, the principle of agency. Sometimes people get stuck, or they get thinking that they have no options, that they're in a corner or a cul-de-sac. And I'm really grateful that the human condition allows us to think about our thoughts and to evaluate, where we're at, and make decisions that we can be about making a difference. We can improve our own lives, and I think that's in part, what we're what this whole discussion will be about, is how do we help other people. The principles out there is if you want to get ahead, then help other people get ahead, solve their problems, and you'll solve yours in the process. And I think that's a very outward focused, altruistic and principle-based approach to life. And so I'm just grateful for that we have that freedom and that liberty to still be able to do that.
A lot of people think, why would a dentist need a side gig? And so you've had many different years. You said you're a serial entrepreneur, so you've always sought out things that to solve people's problems by being an entrepreneur. So what's your reason to be associated with ASEA, the company?
Well, this actually goes back a long time before ASEA ever came into being. And, I was fortunate enough, and again, a point of gratitude, that I was taught the idea of getting mentors and coaches. And some of those I've paid extraordinary amounts of money to be coached by. And others, they were free, and others, they were multiple. And probably 9/10 of my mentors, who I would consider a mentor, don't even know and never did know that they were mentoring me. I just chose them and read their stuff and followed their thinking because I wanted to get outside my own boxes the best I could. And it goes back to that MSI thing that you talked about, the multiple stream of income. Now, I think that was the first concept that I came across probably 35 years ago with these sequence of mentors that came into my life, was that it was a smart idea to diversify your income sources so that if one went south, that you'd have others that could pick up the slack. And it's just about being, prepared. It's about having, getting your ego out of the way and realizing that there's other people that can help you. And so that was probably the fertile ground in which those ideas for me were planted. And I grew up in a home where my dad, bless his heart, he had a lot of MSIs and none of them really worked well. And so the culture in my family growing up was grow up and make something of yourself, get a real job, and settle down and just stay in your lane and so forth. And I tried to do that. I've done that well with my main profession, but the thing that always happens to all of us, the thing that we have in common is we are human, and human things happen. Life events happen. You have family, or you have situations, or you have economic things that occur in your life that you're not in control of. If we were all in control of everything about our lives, we'd all be rich and famous, but we're not in control. And so we have to have some element of preparation, minded thinking going on to say, well, how do we create this multiplicity of income streams, or, and that doesn't mean hundreds, it just means more than one at least, right?
Yeah.
And then the elevation from there is to say, well, if I'm going to do that, what's the best, smartest way to do that? How do I leverage my time? How do I leverage my efforts so I can get the most out of what I'm doing? I didn't want second jobs. I wanted to, again, multiply my energies and my efforts by having some things that were passive, some things that I could employ other people to perform to my benefit and theirs. And that's when I came into network marketing like 20 some odd years ago. I reluctantly got into it, and it actually turned out really well, but it was something I had passion for. It was a health related thing, and I actually made a little bit of money at it. When that company imploded and went away, the income stream went away. And so I just kind of put it on the shelf. And the way I got into ASEA, just the side story, it wasn't because of the income side of it. It was because of what the product did that the company manufactured. And just a short story on that, it was my wife. It wasn't me, it was my wife. She's had poor health for 40 plus years. And we were sitting in the doctor's office one day, and he looked at us and said, I think you need to get her on some redox signaling molecules that will help her. And I said, well, what is that? And he said, just go get some. And I go, but what is it? And he said, just Google it and get some. And that was all I knew about ASEA or redox or anything. I remembered it from some science classes, just the chemistry kind of stuff. But so I found some, we got some. She started using it, and about 2 days later, it was like flipping a switch. It's just like she came alive. And after 40 years, you kind of know what their pain is, what their trials are, and clearly something was different. And so that really wound up my intense little brain cells to say, I've got to figure out what this is, because there wasn't a lot out there about what it was, at least in the science side, to my satisfaction. So I started doing what I'd been doing for 10 years. I'm a past president for the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. And in that arena, I had done a lot of research. I'd written several books. And so I just I used those skills and repurposed them and started diving into the literature to figure out what redox signaling was about, that this company was purporting. And some physicians would approach me and say, well, what is it? Just, let us have your bibliography. Better yet, why don't you just write a book or two, and then we can just read that. We don't have to go and do our own research. And anyway, one thing led to the next, and 2 books came out of all that, Redox Matters and Healthy Matters. And 3 or 4 years later into this now, it's like I just settled the science. It's like I understood the science. Nobody has an advantage on me with regards to the science, because I really do understand it. I believe I paid that price. And so my attention shifted, and I started to realize, this was a couple years ago, I started to realize things were changing around us. And this model of moving products to consumers through networked affiliations really started to re-intrigue me again. I started to look seriously at it one more time to try and understand why did this company do this, and why should I, as a dentist, join them? You know, I've got a good profession to practice. I've got these other things going on. Why would I want to do something like this? And so these same principles of be better prepared, be more diversified, have additional income streams, do something that I love, something that I'm passionate about, something that helps me and others. It all just kind of came full circle, and I realized that we're getting hammered. And in March of 2020, I happened to be in one of those states where the governor is very proactive to protect us, and in doing so, he shut my practice down, as well as, you know, all practices. At least we were deemed in dentistry as non-essential across the country, and so every dental practice in the country was shut down. And I sat there for 2 months without income. And you're thinking, you know, maybe I'll survive, maybe I won't. I'm glad there were some bailouts. You know, the majority of dental practices across the country needed those, some more than others. But it taught me some real-time lessons, you know, with you need to get yourself financially prepared as well as health prepared for the future. You know, we don't want to be dependent on medical intervention to keep us going, to keep us alive, to keep us healthy, quote unquote. But we also need to have other aspects that would help us deal with the economy at hand. You know, this whole, you've got this, am I recession proof? You know, and that's a great segue, because that's what our economy is doing. The title of the book is Why It Matters: How to Become Recession Proof in a Gig Economy. And that intrigued me. That subtitle intrigued me because, like, what is a gig economy? Why, you talked about why would a physician want, you know, or a dentist want a side hustle? Well, in my research, I found data that supported that 40% of physicians have side hustles. And I thought that's strange, just kind of like you were asking the question, why would a dentist need a side hustle, right? There's a societal assumption that physicians kind of have it made. They're at the top of the, you know, the economic chain. And why would 40% want a side hustle? Well, what you don't know is they're hurting. They're no different in their strata, you know, than the average person is. They still wind up, whether you're a dentist or physician, they still wind up in situations where they need their Social Security and things that they put away. And even if the stuff you did put away you think is significant, we could have that all go away in a heartbeat, or with somebody's stroke of a pen, or anything that could go south, you know, in the stock market. All of a sudden, you're no better off than anybody else financially. And so being recession proof is the idea of, if my primary income went away, what would I do? How am I going to deal with inflation? How am I going to deal with shrinking margins of fewer customers, fewer patients, fewer goods being sold? How am I going to compete with younger people coming into my marketplace who are less expensive to hire? And now I'm 40, 50, 60, and I'm downsized, right-sized, outsized, whatever. And where can I go to re-employ myself at the same standard of living or the same pay level or benefit level than where I was when I've got a 35-year-old right out of college who is willing to work for, you know, less, and so forth. So these are all problems and conundrums in our economic society that have created, this all comes to the point of, it creates a gig economy. Having a side hustle, having a side business is now mainstream. And I've seen studies done that show that by, you know, 2030 even, 70 to 80% of the people are going to have some source of income on the side. And much of that is going to become their main gig. You know, it will replace that. I think I read a statistic that said 60% of the millennials, the people under 35 or wherever that cutoff, the new employees, you know, or the new force entering the marketplace, 60% are not wanting to be employed by, as they call it, the man. You know, they're wanting to be self-employed. They want their own gig. And so this is shifting, and of course, technology is allowing us to do this so well. If we just took this idea of I'm hurting and I need some extra or want something extra, if we just kind of started with that and just said, well, what would I do? Would I take my hobby and try to monetize it, something I enjoy doing? Most of the time when you monetize a hobby and it becomes a job, it doesn't become enjoyable later because now you're obligated. You might take your expertise and say, well, I'll consult in that. And I'm like, that's okay. I mean, but you could you could bake bread for the neighbors and take in ironing or do consulting or do bookkeeping but all of that means you're trading time for dollars. You're trading contracts or jobs or whatever for dollars. And it's really no different than where you're already employed. So that's why I like the networking model, is because it allows me to access, and this is why I joined ASEA in part, there's a $51 million infrastructure there that I didn't have to create. I didn't have to come up with a product. I didn't have to come up with the marketing. I didn't have to come up with the R&D or the sales support or the website or the IT or the HR or, you know, all the things that if you were to start another business, you've got to deal with much or most of those in some fashion, and you're going to have to pay for it in some fashion or do it yourself in some fashion. The nice thing side business wise is we can run these things out of our home. So that helps. I don't have to put up a brick and mortar somewhere or rent a space or, you know, obligate myself for 5 years or get a loan that I can't walk away from. You know, for a small fee, I can be in business. So those are all, you know, collateral principles and aspects to this idea of what am I doing to make myself recession proof? You know, what can I do to create value for the marketplace and help people solve their problems and do it in a way that benefits me and them and leverages my efforts in the marketplace? Because I didn't want to just trade more time for dollars. So that's kind of I'm just kind of trying to hit on all cylinders there. But you know, even people whom you would not suspect, because you don't know their story, you know, you don't know how many businesses they've gone through or how many have failed or how much their school debt is or their business debt that they can't walk away from. I don't think those are golden handcuffs. It's like they're handcuffs. You can't walk away from them. You're obligated. Anyway, so you're in business for yourself.
I do have a question or pose a point out here, is that there's a lot of different ways, everything, taking a hobby, turn it into a business, a skill or talent that you may have, but you end up just basically creating a job that you hated when you worked for somebody else. That's how I look at it. So in network marketing, and ASEA calls it next level marketing. Could you expound on that? And I look at network marketing, if you take a good solid network marketing model and place it up against a good franchise model, they're almost identical, but you don't have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars you have to invest for that system. Would you like to expand on that for us?
Yeah, I'll do that last point first. If you were to go in to just say pick a franchise, you know, whatever it is, I've owned a franchise before. You're paying tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get through the door, to have the name and to have the central support that the franchise allows you to happen. But then you still have to find a place to put your franchise. You need leasehold improvements. You need employees. You need working capital. You need to pay your taxes. You've got accounting. You've got all the things of a standard, typical business, but you have a franchise, and there's some benefit in that because you can outsource some of the central support things that make it more efficient, and as well as the name recognition, especially, you can take advantage of that. And network marketing is in essence a form of franchising, in that the people who affiliate, or rather associate with the parent company, are an affiliate, meaning they're referring people to the core parent business entity without having to stockpile or purchase or inventory or invest on all of the foundational business activity or support elements that you would otherwise have to do. And so as an affiliate or an associate of a network marketing company, it allows me to represent them. And then as I refer people to them, and those individuals purchase the product straight from the parent company without going through a middleman person, then I can receive a small commission on their use of those products that they are doing for their own purposes. Furthermore, and this is where the leverage comes in, and I call it generational leverage. You call it reproductive leverage, is that other person then can themselves associate with the company. They can represent it to other people, refer people to them, and work that I did 6 months or 6 years ago can still increase my income and occur month after month after month because of the work that other people are now doing within this network that I am responsible for creating and supporting. And we call that form of income residual income because it's reoccurring, eventually not in a time-dependent fashion, and it's happening around the clock, meaning I'm earning income in my sleep from multiple places around the world at all hours of the day. And so I've separated myself from the activities that generate income, and I don't have any limit because there's no cap or there's no top level. So this next level marketing idea is there's hundreds, if not thousands, of network marketing companies that love this business model. It's rooted in some history, and sometimes the history has been kind of sour, but so has the history of franchising. And it took many decades for regulatory laws and self policing efforts to clean things up in the early decades for franchising to even come of age where it was respectable like it is today. We don't bat an eye about doing business with a franchise anymore, or even to have a franchise. We just find it hard maybe to afford to do it, right? But the same thing has happened over the last century with network marketing. And next level marketing is the next evolution, in my opinion. The industry is from a legal point of view, it's upstanding, it's legitimate, it's appropriate. But the way we do it, the way we approach people, the way it is spoken of, and the way we consider it is very different with what ASEA has created with what we call next level marketing. It's very counterintuitive. And the thing that I was always opposed to, probably because of my culture and what I was exposed to as a young person, was getting into these kind of deals to get rich quick, to make tons of money, to be the millionaire, the billionaire, the whatever, because to me, that was never the right focus. I didn't like that. It to me was a turnoff. And it doesn't mean that you can't be that, because there's no limits to how large you want to grow your own leverage network. In my dental practice, there are limits to how much I can make because I can only see so many people in a given day. I can only deliver so many services. But in this, I can leverage myself. So the counterintuitiveness of next level is I like what Simon Sinek has said in his book, Start With Why. And that has been a foundation for me because he says, when you know what your why is, money becomes the byproduct rather than the product. And I like that focus, and I believe that ASEA has captured that. And we are not focused on money, 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 get rich quick and so forth, which tends to be a common theme in many of these companies, because it started first as a research and as a product and as a health thing. And once they discovered that they had something, then it was like, how do we market this? How do we get it into the marketplace? And they realized that word of mouth marketing was the best way to tell the story of what redox signaling molecules were about. And that's the essence. Of course, that could be another hour discussion about what's the science and how does this help with your health. But if you assume for a minute that we got that figured out, that it is everything we say it is, then it's an issue of how do I get it in the marketplace? And word of mouth marketing is really the answer to that. And then doing it the right way is the next level way of doing that. And the money takes care of itself because we're not focused on that. It's focused on other people, solving their problems, serving them. And when you do that, that counterintuitiveness, the gut knows when it's right. You feel it in your gut, and that's what next level marketing is. So I would recommend anybody watching this, is like, if you're equivocating over what networking is about, approach it with a perspective of what next level represents and what it really means.
Thanks, Lee. That's another reason I'm associated with ASEA, is their approach to the marketplace, putting people before profits.
Yes.
You've got to be profitable in business to survive and be able to deliver your goods and services. So we can't take anything away from profits, but if you build people first, and that's what I love about this company, just like I have no economic gain having you here, other than the fact we're branding what we do, Mark and I, but you're coming in as an ASEA associate to help two other ASEA associates get the word out. So we appreciate that. That's something that you don't see in a lot of organizations. Why should I help Mark and Tom when I don't have a benefit? This company goes beyond that. So I just want to commend you for what you're doing tonight here with that. And am I recession proof? There's a question posed there, and we've had some responses to it. And I am recession proof, but I believe we need to dive deeper into what that really means. I love what you did last Friday night in a similar program talking about the Rule 72. Could you expound on that? I know what it is, coming from the financial service industry, but in relationship to your assets, will they grow at a rate to be able to support you long term? Is, I think, an area I'd like you to focus in on, the Rule 72.
I'll do that with a little bit of a story, because I write about my story in the book. And my story was, with being a serial entrepreneur comes a lot of risk. That's just the real marketplace. And some of my ideas were probably a decade ahead of their time. And it used a lot of my money to do that. And I'm sitting at 45, 50, whatever it was, 60, I don't know, at the time. And my co-host on the ASEA 5 is a stockbroker. And we were having this discussion, and he made the comment, he says, if you're 40, 45, and you don't have your retirement figured out, it's already too late. And I started this little back and forth with him, and like, no, it's not. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a dentist. It's like, I can figure this out. I got plenty of time. And he said, no, you don't. And I go, yes, I do. And he goes, no, you don't. So finally I said, well, why? What, he was really adamant. And he goes, why? And he goes, because of the Rule of 72. And I didn't have a response. My arrogance went aside. I thought, all right, maybe he's got something he can teach me. And I said, what's the Rule of 72? And he said, you just pull out your calculator, type in 72 and divide it by an interest rate. He said, I would suggest 6 because that's kind of a middle ground. It's not like a high 10% return, and it's not a low 2% CD, type of return. Just pick 6%. 72 divided by 6 is 12. That's the number of years it takes for your money to double. Whatever the number is, it takes that long for it to go from where it's at to double. And at 45, 57 is the first doubling, and 69 is the second doubling. So 12 years twice, or 24 years, is two periods of doubling. So if you started, and I'll just take $200,000, because there's kind of this average, it's 200 to 250,000 is an average number for the average person might have that in their retirement at about age 40 or 45. 200 doubled to twice is 800,000. So I'll be generous and I'll give you $1 million. I'll just round it off to $1 million. So at 6%, you're 200,000. Let's say it will grow to $1 million, and now you're 67, and you're going to retire. And 67 years old, 24 years from today. Now that means we've got 24 years of more inflation. So you've got to factor that into this. 24 years from now, you will have $1 million in an account at 6%. If we just kept the same 6%, which my stockbroker friend said, at that age is kind of dicey, because you don't want your money exposed at 6%, because that's not very safe if you can't afford to lose it. So you'll probably be choosing 2 to 3% at that point in your life, but just choose 6%. And 6% of $1 million is 60,000 a year, divided by 12 is 5,000 a month. So 24 years from now, 67, if we just started with that assumption at age 45, you'll have a $5,000 a month income. Now you might have another $1,000 a month from Social Security or whatever government, surplus, and you may have whatever else is going on. But the question is, given your current state of your standard of living, because you know how much money you're earning and what you're spending, and most of us spend what we earn. So just whatever your income is, figure that's your standard of living. The question is, can you support your current standard of living, or the one that you would want, on $5,000 a month? Now, I don't know the answer for you or anybody else. I know for me that $5,000 a month, especially 24 years from now, isn't going to work. So clearly it brings you just by doing this rule of 72 calculation, brings you to a place where you're realizing it's not going to work. Jim, my friend, was right. He says, if you haven't got it figured out and you're 45, it's not going to happen. So what's the conclusion? You got to do something different. You need additional income streams. However you can make that happen. So that's just a quick kind of down and simple, way of using the rule of 72 to factor where you're at. This is why we've always said you need to start when you're, 18 years old, to put several hundred or a few $1,000s a year away. Do that for, 8 or 10 years, and there's enough time left for it to keep doubling, that you'll wind up with something. And that's kind of back when $1 million meant something in a retirement. And today you need $2 to $4 to $8 million if you're even going to hope to have a $5,000 or $10,000 a month standard of living, again, 20 years from now. So
very good points, because I think we need to make those assessments, deeper than just on the surface. I'm recession proof. I've got it all handled, but really take a look at your numbers and calculate that out. And will it support you by using straight analytical numbers? And it'll shock you, is that we never been schooled on principles of money, how money works, and how those type of things. So the rule 72 is a very powerful principle.
But now let's blend them together, Tom and Mark. Let's take that principle and now think of the asset equivalency.
Yeah, I was going to just move to that.
Because we've got network marketing. We're doing something. We're doing a side hustle. Okay. We're doing this for the purpose of creating an income. So if I had that same $5,000 a month, what does it equal? Well, we just answered that question. It's the same as having $1 million in the bank earning 6%. So that means if I did something on the side that created a $5,000 residual, reoccurring monthly income, kind of like an annuity, it would be the same as if I had $1 million. So here's the pivotal question. Starting right where you're at, doing what you're currently doing, because this is a comparative thing, doing what you're currently doing, how long would it take you to put an extra $1 million in the bank doing what you're doing right now? And that's a really sobering question, because if you're in business for yourself, we're not talking $1 million. We're talking about you've got to create $2 million or $3 million in gross revenues, because it has to pass through an overhead filter for you to take it out of your business as a net income, or you can do something with it. It's got to go through taxation and an overhead filter. If you're an employee in a job, that money would have to come through in the form of bonuses or, pay raises, and you're still going to pay taxes on it. So you're looking at needing, 1.5 million at least, I would think, in order to pay the taxes on it, so that you could wind up with $1 million that would generate that $5,000 a month. The point is it's an obvious point, because you're not even doing $1 million doing what you're doing right now. That's why we're even having the conversation, let alone what you could be doing, how long it would take. So the point is, if I had a side hustle that generated a residual income stream, I really don't even care what company this is or what you're doing. It's a residual income flow. At $5,000, you just put an asset equivalent of $1 million away. That's a powerful concept. But let's make it, because we don't want this, to get too heady on us. Let's just talk about $1,000, which is the idea of what 1,000 means. $1,000 a month is the same as having $250,000 in the bank earning 5%. And I'm just using those numbers because they're rounded out. You can round them off easily. $250,000 is the same argument. Doing what you're doing right now, how long would it take you to put an extra $250,000 away into a bank account that would liquidly flow $1,000 a month? Now, to me, the obvious, if I ran that through my dental practice, for me to do an extra $1 to $2 to $3 million a year, it could happen, but that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work for any dentist, for any physician. Okay. And it has to go through those overhead filters, and I'm generating it with time. I'm trading time to do that and services to do that. So the whole point here is, if I can do something that could create something very reasonable, $1,000 a month, if you put 20 to 25 people in this business, the one we're doing, on as customers, just as a customer, you have $1,000 a month of income. That's the same as putting $250,000 and plopping it in a bank account, earning 5% interest. And so what if it took you 12 months to do that, or 18 months, or 24 months, or you could knock it out in 4 months? It's on how many people can you talk to, right? What are you willing to do to get outside of yourself to do that? The point is, there's just hardly anything else that could compare. And that's the power of asset equivalence. I don't have $1 million liquid cash that I could take and go buy real estate with. It's not sitting in the bank. It's the same as, it's an asset equivalency. It's like an annuity that's paying me because of the work I did months and years ago, that's still getting more and more and more because the network is growing. And now I have spendable cash flowing into my personal bank account that I can do things with. And we've been really future focused with all this. But what would an extra $1,000 a month do to the average person in terms of their ability to pay for orthodontic braces for their kids, or a heating bill or utility bill, or to not, we've got this idea that, a high percentage of people cannot cover a surprise cost. That they couldn't cover a $500 or $1,000 surprise emergency that occurred, a car repair, something went out on their heating system or something. A kid comes home from, says, I've got this extra expense at school, or something. It's like, do that. Well, guess what? An extra $1,000 a month is like a 10 to 30% raise for most people. So.
And something too, I think it's important with the right business model with network marketing, you can create legacy income or generational income that could be passed on to your family once
It's an asset.
It's an asset. So I think it's another critical thing is what are you doing today that can be generational, that support your family or support a cause or whatever your purpose in life is. And that's another asset that I think that whole principle has more value than we really think about if we think about it in more detail. So
yeah, and so that's the whole concept of why, if you get back to that first question of why would anyone do this? I mean, we could be facetious and say why not, but to be real about it, it's like the economy is hurting. If you haven't figured out how you're going to survive a loss of income, or if you haven't figured out how you're going to survive financially, what would happen if you survived a heart attack, if you survived a stroke, if you survived a dementia diagnosis in your family, and now that's going on, and you've got all the support care needed, to do that. These financial services people, and Tom, maybe this was you. I don't know exactly the brand of financial services you were doing, but if you had some investments out there in the stock market or real estate or whatever, and suddenly your home got swept away in the flood, or your business went under, or you got fired, or you had a heart attack and you were disabled, or a stroke and half your body's paralyzed, right? And you can't work, your income goes away, you're going to start taking apart your investments. You're going to start premature withdrawals that will put you in withdrawal probably, but you're going to be going through that. And guess what? You can't get the time back that it took to build that. You don't have enough time left. And that's the point. What are you going to do?
And it's another sad thing is that people start seeing that on a monthly basis because the average family has less than 500 discretionary income. Right. And that's being eroded by the cost of eggs and everything else that every time we turn around, we're paying another 15% more for those same goods and services. So I guess what I would say with that is I sort of got lost. My brain sort of went fogged on it. It's a critical thing to have that strategy and assess where you're at, what you're doing, and will it meet your needs long term, immediately as well as long term. What I was going to allude to is that a lot of people are short, so they end up spending 24 to 30% of next year's income on credit cards. So they use that to support their lifestyle, to cover those needs, emergencies, but they're spending 20 to 30% of the next year's income in interest. So that just spirals that recession process down. So there's a place for debt to be used properly with proper leverage, but for just day-to-day spending, it's not a thing to do. So,
yeah. So my plea with people is like, these exercises are about become aware of what's happening. If you're not awake, you need to get waked up. It's different.
Wake up.
You need to get waked up. You need to become awake as to what's going on. If you aren't reading the news headlines, if you aren't understanding the gravity of what's going on out there and how it is and will and continue to impact you at a personal level, you need to change. You need to wake up, and then you need to say, well, then what can I do? And you've got lots of options. You can take in the ironing of the neighborhood and do their ironing for them. You can walk their dog. You can do their taxes. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can earn extra income. You can cut your expenses. You don't need to go out all the time to eat, and you can eat rice and beans once in a while and get a less expensive cut of meat. I mean, there's ways to cut your expenses as well. But once you come to that realization that you need to change, then you go, well, then I need additional income because I can change the balance sheet faster by adding income rather than cutting outgo. Both are indicated, but I can change the profit and loss balance much quicker by adding an extra $500 a month or $1,000 a month or $3,000 a month. That happens way faster in every way. So then you go, then how do I do that? What kind of thing do I want to do? What am I going to trade my time? I already have one job. Do I want a second or a third or a fourth job? How much leverage do I want? How can I use the technology? How can I leverage or outsourced resource platforms, business platforms to support me so that I can spend more of my time in the activities that earn income rather than doing the back work of keeping the business going. And so it's just one logic point after another. And that's where, to me, it winds up at the final place of saying, I need a network marketing company, because there is no investment. We could say, well, it's $40 to join. All right, compared to what, a couple $100,000 to go start another business? It pales by comparison, and that's the downside, because the barrier of entry is so low that the barrier of exit is also very low. It's like if you don't walk away from a job that you have $1 million banknote on, I would not walk away from my dental practice. I couldn't. You'd be insane to do something like that. I could sell it, but I can't just quit, because I'd be in debtor's prison or whatever. And so that the point is that the common average person can take advantage of the gig economy. That is a trend. You want to put yourself in front of trends. Don't do things that aren't going somewhere. So the fact that there's lots of people looking, they also feel the economy. That's why this is mainstream in the gig economy, because everybody's thinking about these very same issues. I need to do something. I'm getting beat up. Inflation, credit cards, kids' braces, and they need a new size of pants because they're growing. Food's more expensive, whatever, right? They feel the need, and now they've got to solve a problem. And I can now show up and say, let me help you with your health, and at the same time, we can create a business with you. And you can get that extra 300 or 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 or whatever it is a month going. And it costs $40 and a little bit of your time to get going. That's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah.
Right.
All upside, very little risk associated with it. The risk that you face is doing nothing, and that's important. Make that assessment and find that thing. I call it having lanes. You find your main purpose, and then your side gig should run I call it run parallel. So it's easy for you to shift from one lane to another.
Yeah.
So everything I do, I've got my main lane, but the things I put on either side of it run parallel. So I'm not diverging or going off and chasing silvery objects. I just shift. So find that thing that I call blows your hair back, that you have a passion for. Build on that, and then find things that will support it. Create multiple streams of income off of one. If you can do that, when we look at the wealthiest people in this country, they have 5 sources of income as an average. 5 sources of income. We think, why would a mega millionaire or multimillionaire want to do that? They're doing it for a lot of whys, for that family legacy. They're doing some things that we all dream about, but they're exercising these principles. And that's why I love Robert Kiyosaki's book. I think you mentioned it the other night, is the 4 quadrants of income, and start evaluating what you're doing. What quadrants are you in, and where would you get the best leverage for your time and money to solve that recession process? Would you agree?
I would. And I would implore people, don't go get a side hustle because you love it, because you enjoy it. You can learn to love and enjoy. I remember having to think through dental school. It's like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I hate blood. I hate blood. I was like, all these reasons, and I kept telling myself, there are hundreds of thousands of other people that figured this out. You can too. And so people who say, well, I don't know if this doesn't work, I quit, and it's like, it didn't work. It's like, no, you didn't work. You got to figure this out. You've got to be smart about it, which is what I think you were just saying. If you're going to go spend 20 hours or 10 hours or 5 hours a week doing something, the question to ask first is, does it blow my hair back? Is this something I'm really excited about? And can I leverage my activities and my efforts to where I can get 20 hours out of work out of 5 hours of work? I mean, why be otherwise about it? So anyway.
Yeah. Great explanation. Mark, do you have anything you want to?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it here, Lee, when you talked about how you got involved through a health issue. One of the things I just wanted to ask you, what would you say to somebody that, says, hey, I'm doing well in life. I'm making 6 figures plus, I'm a professional person. Why would I even want to consider this? Now, you touched on those things because what I'm hearing you say, and you're waking us all up through your book as well, is that going to last? How long will that last? Or there could be a health issue. Maybe you are invested, but then all of a sudden you have a health issue, like it could be your brain, your heart, whatever the case may be. How do you approach people? Like they may have status and they're doing well in life, but it's like, hey, I don't need to do that. But just from a health perspective, you touched on it. What do you think about people that are doing well in life? And, what would you say to them in doing, getting involved in, since you're talking about a gig economy? Because some people may think, hey, I'm above that. I don't need to participate in that program. That's not going to happen to me. And statistically, we're all dealing with it. So could you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple of them. It's like, if you're doing so well, then why do you pay insurance for your home? Why do you have health insurance? Why do you have disability insurance? Why do you have life insurance if everything's going so well? If things are well, then drop all your insurance. You could pick up an extra $1,000 a month just by not paying insurance or whatever. And I think the other, and that's a little said tongue in cheek, obviously sure. You're not going to do those things, but do you have income insurance? If your income went away, do you have a way to replace the income that would be coming from your primary source? Yes or no? Or in part, maybe, enough to keep the wolves away while you're trying to figure the rest of your life out. From the health side, yeah, I mentioned earlier, and you just restated it. None of us know. If you looked and said, well, is there anybody in your family that's had cardiovascular disease, that has diabetes, that is overweight, that is there anybody in your family that has dementia or Alzheimer's, or is there any risks going on? And some people would say, well, they would have to say yes, because this is just the way it is. But if you or me were healthy, again, just the health thing, we say, well, I don't need this stuff. And it's like, right. You're not doing it to fix anything. You're doing it to prevent something. And I think that's, an important aspect of this. And also, do you remember 2008? Is that a bright memory? And I was trying to think the one before that. I think they called it.
Bring that up. Did you have to bring up 2008?
I know. There was something that went on before that. Several years, it was the October surprise or something. I remember talking to a stockbroker, financial guy at the time, and he said it was Monday morning and it hit, and he goes, overnight, with the stroke of, or the ding of a bell at Wall Street, he goes, we were poor, we were starting over. And if you go, okay, but if you wait 30 years, you'll get it back. I mean, that's the way it goes. But that doesn't work if you're already 60. You can't wait 30 years for the market to get back, So, I mean, we're kind of speaking maybe to the obvious here, but, the answer is there's a difference between smart money and dumb money. And the people that are smart money, they realize that, yep, I've got 5 million stocked away. I'm totally good, but I recognize an opportunity. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I realize that I can do this. I can make more. I can exercise my stewardship to be a better steward, and I can do better. I don't want to call people dumb, but it's like the smart money recognizes when there's an opportunity to be better prepared.
And
Diversified, Tom, you were talking about this diversified. If you had 1,000 customers, each giving you $5 a month, and one of them went away, or 5 of them went away, how much would that impact you? Versus if you had one customer giving you $1,000 a month and they went away. And so that's the benefit of networking, is you're creating a diversified network that is pulling from a diverse number of economies. If things in your state or your county or your country aren't going well, I've got 80 other people in other countries and economies that are doing well. And they're all giving me a little bit of that activity. And that's smart money.
Yeah. So I appreciate everything you're saying. You're hitting, as Mark would say, being a baseball umpire, you're hitting home runs for everybody here too. So, but
absolutely.
Great points, Lee. And I just want to compliment you on your book. This is a book, no matter what you're doing in your current avocation or business, read it. It's also a workbook. Yes.
Yeah, you've got exercises in there.
Yeah, so he's got things for you to work on, so you can do that assessment of where you're at, and so you can make the right decisions for yourself and your family around the economics. And are you willing is the key. You're able to, next question, am I willing to offset risk? I love what you said about we have insurances because we don't want to lose something, but what are we doing to ensure our income? Great point.
Yeah, you don't want your assets to have to be taken apart just to support a problem.
Yeah, so great point. So hopefully that's hitting some nails on the head right there. So great job, Lee. Anything else, Mark?
How'd you get over one thing I loved about what you said, Lee, your ego, you left at the door a long time ago. But, some people allow that to get in their way, or status, but it seems like in your case, it was out of necessity. Did you even know, you touched on it, you brought it up, like when you were researching Redox, did you really understand it then? Or, now that you've written books about it, but back I think you said how many years ago it was, when they said, go get some, I'm just curious, where did you go to get it?
Well, I had read somebody's comment like 3 or 4 months earlier, just on a random webpage about other health things, and they mentioned ASEA. And so like 3 months later, I'm sitting in the doctor's office, and he just says, go Google it and get some. He wasn't involved. He just heard, he was really scraping the bottom of the barrel. That was how significant my wife's health challenges were. He didn't know what else to do. And which is why he thought maybe this was shot in the dark, right? So I recalled reading about it from this other author in one of her books, and so I just searched her stuff, and I found her, and I found the site. I didn't really realize what it was. It was like later, it was like, oh my goodness, this is network marketing. Oh no, please, I just want to go to Walmart and buy this stuff, right? And then I started to wake up especially after I saw how it helped her. I was like, well, I can't stop this now. I was like, that would not be right to her or me to not help her have the solution for her health. And that's when I started to look at the business side and think, well, if this is a network marketing business, I have to know that the science isn't going to be like a rug that goes out from underneath my feet. This has to be solid. And then when I got that down, I started to realize my only last objection here is that this is one of those things. Chicken bone in my throat. It just, can I really swallow this, right? Because after all, I am a dentist, right? I mean, it's like, it's like, go look at my front door of my building. That's my name's there, right? It's like, anyway, I had to deal with that, everybody has to deal with that. And then these older mentors come, I could hear them saying, you need multiple streams of income. And I thought, well, maybe this is it. And so I dove into the business side, and I realized I realized, nobody's perfect, but I don't know how else to characterize this. I realized how pure this company was, how above the crowd they operate at, the integrity, their ethos, the way they think. This is legacy. They're not there to just churn a profit in 5 years and flip it to the next investor. They were like, no, we're in this so that your great grandchildren can inherit something from you. And I just, that is so refreshing to me. And so then I started to get my head around the machine, the model. This is a spreadsheet. If you put something in the top of the spreadsheet, it comes out the bottom. It's a widget when it goes in the top, but it's something when it comes out. And I realized if you have the right company with the right leadership, with the right ethos, with the right product, and you put all that together in a word of mouth marketing model that grows and grows, and you've got this gig economy pushing it, like people need these solutions, you can't really lose. You just have to get your own head out of the way. And that's been, maybe writing the book was my own therapy, for getting my head out of the way. But it is so solid, it is just so wonderful. It's so refreshing, because you bring your ego to this and you're going to lose. This is about math. It's a mathematical equation. And that's what I like about it. It's no respecter of persons.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Lee, we're honored and humbled to have you here tonight. You did an excellent job on that. And there's, scrolling across the bottom, Redox Matters. That's where they can learn more about what your other two books and this book as well. We encourage anybody out there to get this book. It'll give you a roadmap to help you make a decision would be best for you and your family. So I encourage you to get it. So we're here to support you, Lee, just like you're here to support us. So
yes,
thanks much.
I've enjoyed being with you. I love what you're doing, and wish you well in your journey as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mark, we're going to put Lee back in the green room. Enjoy all the blue M&Ms that you requested. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hold tight. Well said. Well said. Would you agree, Mark?
Oh, absolutely. A very, very humble man. And I'm sure he sees himself. I love when he said about, I didn't want to do this, but he probably sees himself every now and then with people thinking about getting involved. And I like the whole thing when you were talking to him about next level marketing, gig economy, what people are doing. And he's talking about real life things in everybody's lives. It's, we've touched on it more than once, $500. How will that impact you on a monthly basis? $1,000, everybody could use a little assistance. I've never seen anybody turn money away, oh, I don't need it. Give them $500 and see what happens, or $1,000. I've never seen people return it. Maybe you have, Tom, but I haven't. So I've heard people make that statement, but when they get the money in hand, they don't give it back.
You'd be lucky if they said thank you, right?
Yeah, for some, but no, he touched on and he talked about the ethos and just having someone like Lee on here. I mean, it just reaffirms I'm in the right neighborhood. Just down to earth, solid, type individuals. They operate from a premise of integrity. That's the best way I can put it. And they don't pull any punches either. They tell you the way it is. And I enjoyed listening to them.
All right. Well, I appreciate Lee being here. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Do we have a guest next week on the agenda?
Mr. Ernest Odell will be joining us next week, and he's quite the talker. And he'll be talking about his gig mentality and what he's doing, and he's going to share, his views, his opinions, and his process, so to speak.
Yeah. Just more things to think about, knowing what your options are so you can make that intelligent decision is so important.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so that's our whole purpose, is that ASEA is a wonderful company, but there's other good companies out there as well. Just got to find the one that fills your need and something you can feel good about promoting and sharing with other people. That's all we do in network marketing, share good ideas and good information. So we don't have to sell or convince when people take the time to see what we have to offer. The science is there, the opportunity is there. There's no hype here. I love what he says, be a side hustle thousandaire. That I can comprehend that. People can't comprehend 1 million, 2 million, or mega millions when they're making 50,000 a year. That's outside their belief system. It's possible. So, but building a business what I always ask this question: what would your life look like a year from now if you were making an extra $1,000 a month? What would your life look like?
Yeah.
They'll tell you, and then just ask the question: what are you willing to do to get it? And that's their decision. You got to have the why in place, realize the benefit for doing the work, because it does take work, and anything fruit that gives fruit, you got to do the hard work. I'm not saying network marketing isn't hard. It's like any other business. You got to focus and be intentional and looking for outcomes to help and support people in any way you can. So anything else you'd like to say, Mark?
That's it. I just want to thank the people that joined us this evening as well. As usual, Robert from Canada and friend Nell. She's from another
Philippines. Country. She's from the Philippines.
Yep.
Yeah. So
other country. So thank you so much for taking the time to hop on.
I want to thank Eric for being here as well.
Absolutely.
Our pizza crust guy. So
yeah, Mr. Bam.
Yeah. He's got a great program he puts on as well.
Oh,
so
absolutely. You talking about the locker penalty box?
Yeah, the penalty box. Yes. Yeah. So
I always think of the locker room when I see his event. And Eric, if I could, I'd watch the whole thing. I hop on real quick and watch, and then I got to go do my thing and get back on the phone. But yeah, check out Eric's program as well. Yeah. Penalty box. Good things.
Okay. So we got Ernest Odell coming on next week. That'll be another great eye opener of what he's done in the area of technology. They have a multiple streams of income, showing people how to use technology to make money. So that's a pretty powerful thing as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So with that all said, Mark, anything else?
That's it.
Well, we'll close out with our brand closing video here. It's